Go.
All right, and we're good. We are live. Thank you, everyone, for coming to our Functional Life Forum with Dr. Don. I will let him take over and talk about, anxiety, stress, and success. Anxiety and success. Go ahead, Dr. Don. You start us off, introduce yourself, and I think everyone knows you by now. It's on the line, but...
Yeah, everyone knows. Yeah, Dr. Don Joergens, functional brain training, and other stuff. So, thanks everyone for coming. Tonight's I think could be a very good interactive, or trying to be more interactive. The aspect of stress, anxiety, and success, kind of interesting topic integration, and how they go together and what have you. I'll definitely start it off and start discussing the things, especially, well, I guess all of it. But stress, I often say a lot that conventional wisdom, conventional medicine really, really doesn't understand stress very well, even though it's been around a long time. It started with Dr. Hans Selye from Canada, a researcher who actually initiated stress research. And actually coined the term of stress and regarding the psychology of the human. But so I'm going to talk about stress. So I'm going to define that. I'm going to speak about it in terms of the brain and also a little bit to the gut. We actually talked about this last week in mental health and the microbiome. So there's a little bit of, there's more than a little bit of contextual contingency, if you will. But also, I think it's just fascinating, even success, to the definition of it, or our own personal definitions of it, which kind of want to get into a little bit. And then, of course, what's the relationship between stress, anxiety, and success, as our topic is asking, begging the question. So I just, and I'm going to be looking and reading certain things. I have notes and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to start it off with Merriam-Webster's definition of success. I'm going to go that way first. And it's really interesting. The basic definitions of success from a dictionary perspective. Success, anyone who's rich, respected, or famous is successful. Now that's the dictionary definition of it. Isn't that interesting? Of course. Then you go to the Oprahs and the billionaires and the successful people of the world having their definitions of success. One of the things I like that everyone to start to think about is, their own personal definition of success. This is a multifactorial kind of talk. We certainly aren't going to get to all of it. But on just one level is the aspect of success, because one of the things about Natural Life Business Partnership, one of the reasons why people join is they want to be successful. They want to increase or enhance their success. One is having a definition of it. Two is having some understandings of success in relation to ourselves, both business, personal, what have you. So there's some interesting things that by themselves I'd like to talk about and get people's feedback. But of course, we're going to look at to a certain extent, the greater science of stress, anxiety, and of course, then success and where it all plays in. Okay, so to start with, everything is stress. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you everything is stress. And if we look at, Selye got stress from the Newtonian definition of Newton in physics with stress. Stress of a load generating a force on an object or through, right? So that's where stress, the term, comes from, and it's extremely applicable. When you think about it in the ethereal aspect of psychology, of thought, it kind of loses steam, and it kind of gets gossamer-like, and it's very difficult to actually get a grip on. But it's really exactly that. From the Newtonian aspect of stress and weight and force, it's exactly that. So everything is stress. Henseley defined two of the terms. One is eustress, EU stress, or good stress, and the other one is distress or bad stress, good stress and bad stress, and some of the syndromes that come from it, local adaptive and general adaptive syndrome. We don't have to know that stuff because it's actually kind of old parlance right now. So when I say everything is stress, that is the organ upon which we feel stress, where we resist stress, where we need stress, is the brain. The brain requires stress. Now, two different aspects. One is physical stress, actually gravity. We have our five senses, and those five senses are stimulation, putting or stress, stimulation into our brain from the five senses. That's only about, roughly 5 to 7% of all stress or stimulation to the brain. Stress and stimulation, you can use the same word here when it comes to the brain and actually understanding stress. The vast majority is gravity, is the aspect of our muscles contracting and other things driving stimulation up into our brain, stressing our brain. Eustress, good stress. Why? Because the brain cells, and I've said this in other, I'm going to go really fast through this, but I've said this in other talks. The brain cell, the neuron, requires stimulation in order to heal, in order to be at 100%. If it doesn't get enough stimulation, it starts to degenerate. So the aspect of stress, physical stress, gravity, physical stress, causing stimulation, stressing our brain, is a stress and a physical stress, what we need. Now, we'll get into the aspect of where that goes awry or how that can go awry. But I want you to think about, and let's make the connections to other areas which you all know. The aspect of osteoporosis, bone loss. You all know that exercise and certain types of loading force is good for osteoporosis, osteopenia. Why? Because the bone requires stress loads in order to deposit calcium where it's necessary. So stress, that would be a good stress for the bone. That's a physical stress. So the other aspect too is if I were to give you, people go and work out. We work out with our body, we work out with weights. If I was to give someone who could lift 100 pounds off of the floor, and I told them to lift 200, it's too much stress. They could strain themselves, hurt themselves. It's too much stress. If I give them a little bit less than that and I work them out, they get stronger. Everyone understands that. Everyone just intuitively, cognitively, scholastically understands that aspect of progressive stress or progressive resistance builds muscles. So stress is something that is absolutely necessary. It's a part of life. However, stress can become too much. And the organ that both needs it, the brain, also that in essence measures it, resists it, if you will, the brain, can become weakened and can break in essence, causing dysfunction from it. The dysfunctions that we can see, one of them in particular we're going to talk about is anxiety. Stress is the inducer, right? Anxiety is the outcome, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then, of course, we'll relate it to success or the lack thereof. But I can't say it enough. Stress is necessary. We need the stimulation, right? We need that from the environment, both from gravity as well as on the aspect of achievement. Here's my things I have to do. I have to go out and do those. Of course, everything is a stress. We're going to get into cognitive stress in a second. Let's see. Okay, one aspect of here, I'm talking about stress from the outside, and I just want to make one drop back. But that's what I'm talking here is external stress, right? Of the physicality of the world, stressing us, the brain needs it, but driving constantly into the brain. I want to make one analogy, one metaphor. If or an analogy, if I analogize the brain to a person's own strength, right? And you had the capacity, like I used the example before, that you could lift 100 pounds. And let's say the brain itself can lift 100 pounds. If it's constantly getting 50s and 60s and 10s and 20s, no problem. Even when it gets the load of 100, it can handle it, but boy, oh boy, it's really strained and stressing. The problem comes in if I give the person who can easily lift 100 and I hand them 200 pounds, they get hurt. They can get hurt. They drop it. It's overloading them. The same can be said for the brain. Now, often the brain is already having problems, and the stress of the world, both external, I'm going to talk about the stress from within in a second, but the external stress from the world of gravity. And think about it, as people go along, whether they're injured, whether they don't exercise, whether they gain weight and they're going through longer and longer, they become weakened. They become weakened, especially if they're gaining weight, they become a heavier load. Gravity has a greater effect on them. Stress is increasing to their brain, increasing to their body. And so the same weight of their body, the same aspects, now become a burden, now can become an overstressed situation. So just want you to realize that what goes on in life, not just from the gravity aspect, but even their health, that which the cellular state could once take, as it declines in health, becomes a greater load or a greater total stress load. And the organ that has to deal with it at the end of the day is the brain, or at the end of the moment is the brain. And again, what state is the brain in? So that's the external stress load. Now, as sapient beings, sentient being that we are emotionally producing, feeling, emotional intelligence, we're emotional beings. A dog is sentient. We're additionally sapient. Sapiens, Homo sapien. We have the ability to take knowledge from the past or knowledge from the present and project to a unformed future state. We can project and make calculations. What can occur? Create something that's not made. We have to think, imagine it, which is a future state, and do it in the present. This is sapience. This is the basis of wisdom. We are the highest order of sapient beings on the planet. However, we are in a war zone of evolution, often not considered, but we are evolving. And we are not at the end of our evolution by any stretch of the imagination. So we sit at a point of evolution where we have the capacity, which allows us, our technology allows us, our society, we have a capacity to project into the future. But it doesn't stop there. We also, unfortunately or fortunately, it's not unfortunate, it is, but we also cognitively, thoughtfully, can take a thought, a worry, or a fear. Let's just take those two for now, and they're biggies. A worry or a fear, and project them into the future, a future which does not exist, but we make it real. And this can create a loop, a vicious negative feedback loop. This is stress. This is cognitive thought stress. Now, in a healthy brain, what will happen is they'll inhibit it and say, that doesn't exist. I'm not going to think about that. Boom, done. I want to give you an idea, a thought about this, or an image. If I hand you 5 pounds, not big, even 1 pound, and I ask you to hold it out just like that, the first 10 seconds not a problem. Even 30 seconds may not be a problem, but eventually it's a problem. It doesn't matter how light that load is, even just to hold your arm out, eventually the strain and the stress will add up. Consider this, the cognitive stress, which is a huge thing. It's both happening at the same time. Both the physical world is generating at the same constant into our brain, which it needs, okay? But in a weak brain state, when I've talked to you guys in the past about weak brain, strong brain, this hemispherical model, if there's an imbalance, there's a weak part, and it could be getting unloaded or overloaded, overstressed by simply activities of daily living, just living in a gravity well. Now, the other part, the cognitive part of stress, the thoughtful part of stress, is the aspect of like holding that arm out, the projection into the future of a worry or a fear or any thought, and have it come back, and instead of a healthy brain saying, nonsense, inhibited, healthy brain would say, oh no, I'm not even gonna think about this. The unhealthy brain allows it to keep this cycle and this constant strain, like holding the arm up, not letting it down. If I hand you 20 pounds, I say, hold it forever. Well, of course, you're going to crack. It's going to break. You're going to drop it. But the mind cannot put down a thought. The unhealthy mind, the weak mind, the mind that has a problem, we'll just call it that, can't put the thought down and keeps extending it into the future, comes back, and the cycle. That's cognitive stress, cognitive load, okay? And which will continue to weaken an area and weaken the brain until things evoke. As an example, panic attacks, anxiety. I know Dr. Vinny has had this happen to him hundreds of times, if not more. You all have experienced people with this if you haven't experienced yourself. Comes along, out of the blue, panic attack. I wasn't even thinking of anything. I don't know what happened. The heart rate goes, the sweating happens, the fear comes up, and panic attack. That's the aspect of the physical load, the brain in a certain area, in certain areas, kind of breaking and allowing the stress response. Remember, everything is stress. The stress response, the fear and flight, the sympathetic, parasympathetic, the fear comes up. The sympathetic response comes up, the sweating, the heart rate. Something's happening. I've got it. This is the brain gone bad, all right? Or not bad, it's broken. And the person is having what the medicine defines as a panic attack. But what we're looking here is a weakened brain. That's from the anxiety panic attack. Now, others are experiencing anxiousness or increased anxiousness to the point of anxiety. I have a Harvard definition just to show you just how off, in my opinion, things are. Anxiety is a reaction to stress. Well, so far, so good. That has both psychological and physical features. The feeling is thought to arise in the amygdala, a brain region that governs many intense emotional responses. And that goes into other things. Even Harvard newsletter is looking at a whole brain thing, looking at it and saying, well, it's fear coming from the amygdala. And what they're not looking at is the aspect of the brain not being able to hold the stress. I coined the term not too long ago. I call it stress lifting, just like weightlifting. If you have a brain and it is having problems with stress and handling even just the load of stress of physical life, but particularly, of course, it's going to be also quite in cognitive aspects of people, of worry, of fear, could be just about anything, could go into phobias, compulsions, all these things. If that brain is having the problems, and let's say it's weakened to the point, let's say life is 100 pounds, and the most they can handle is 75 pounds. Of course, they're in trouble. Let's say they can handle 100 pounds, they can't handle anything else, so any other additional thoughts, they're already in anxiety. What if you were to strengthen the brain? You strengthen the brain so that it could handle 300 pounds. Then all of a sudden, stress is meaningless. It becomes good stress. It can handle everything like water on a duck's back. So the aspect I want to just throw in there just for now is understanding that stress is more than you think it is, right? And we want to expand that thought out, and that the organ, of course, that we're seeing the expressive issues and problems from it, of course, is coming from the brain as well. And by the way, from last week, the brain and gut, because the gut is extremely involved. The gut-brain axis extremely involved in stress response, stress mediation, and all of that. So let's just throw that in there, but let's just the aspect of stress. Now, so I just wanted to make it, put it on the table, in the understanding of stress from the physical as well as the cognitive, and that of these cycles of perseveration that come from the ability to project our power makes us human. One of the things that makes us human is the ability to project a thought into the future. But when it's a negative thought of worry or any negative thought or fear, that it cycles back, and our brain is not strong enough to suppress it, it gets thrown back out again. And every time it comes back, it's a hit. Every time it comes back, it's a hit. Every time it comes, and thus the stress, the breaking of the brain, and the problems that we see from stress. Now, and the evocation of anxiety, both anxiety in the aspect, like I said, the brain just, for whatever reasons, which is not for today, becomes weakened, and we get anxiety expression into the aspect of a panic attack, or the other way around, where the individual is burdened, overly burdened with worry, with other things in their life, and that's the thing that fractures the brain, the organ that needs the stress or can't handle the stress, and we start to see the negative aspects of anxiety and the disconnect there. So it can start from within, it can start from without, and both. So stress, which I'll go right through here. I want to throw out a question before we go any further and ask for any questions. But I'm really curious, does anyone have their own personal definition of success or thoughts about success? Anyone, and just throw anything out. Let's just be a community and chuck some things out. Anyone, success. We're all trying to be successful, right? And if you can't spit it out at me, we need to get that written down. We need that in a tight verbiage, so your brain and your mind know what success is. But or just general thoughts on success. Anyone want to throw anything out at me? I don't know. Is anyone talking?
Well, I can just say, yeah, if people are muted, you can unmute yourself. I muted people while you were speaking. If you don't know how, chat and I can unmute you. I think success is always defined by you. You know, people could be very wealthy and still not feel that they're successful, or they might not even be happy. You know, I've seen lots of people in jobs that they're not happy with. I think success is just overall, it's like a feeling of gratitude in my.
Yeah. Okay.
Success isn't. There's not a dollar figure on success, or, you know, some people that have happy families and homes and they have wonderful lives that other people might not think that that's success. Success is defined as you need it to be for you.
Okay.
That's my thought.
Anybody else want to throw anything in there? Okay. All right. Vinny, you want to talk?
Yeah, well, I think, I view success as, people talk about different kinds of success, financial success, being successful in your marriage. I guess overall it's, that you have a feeling that you have achieved a certain level of, say, comfort, if you will, by your work or by other means, so that you don't have to worry so much about money. You've got good relationships. You get to see your grandkids. The things that are important to you. You feel that you've managed to put them in your life by the path you've chosen in life.
Mm-hmm. And
a very tight definition, I'll say.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. There's no one here who wouldn't agree with that. What I'd like to point out is I'm gonna look at stress in two directions when it comes to success. I think it's really important. Everything you said, Vinny, is absolutely true. But they're end goal successes. They're end goal achievements that could take some time to achieve. And the one thing is I'd love to point out is, and that's why our definition of success has a headline. Like Vinny's example of a headline. Camille was giving a headline. And we've heard it so often that it's the journey, right? Often people, they get to their success, be it financial or whatever, and they're like, okay, now what? I have some clients like that. Independently wealthy, extremely successful by the world's view, and they have anxiety because now they're like, now what? I never considered what I would do when I actually achieved it. And so, but that's okay. I get that. But what I'd like to point out, and why it's really important to start to think about success and the definition of it, because what is it doing? It's creating stress. It's the path trying to get there, Vin, be it financial, what have you, and I'd like to redefine some of these things. But the journey becomes extremely successful, and it doesn't have to be. It's one of the things we're all going to talk about. It's perception. You see, in order to get to an end goal, be it losing weight, be it becoming healthy, it doesn't happen tomorrow, and there's a bunch of tomorrows that have to become todays, upon which we have to be successful in order to lose weight, become healthy, or make our business goals, or change or transform, or anything. And what I'm saying is that there's success in so many moments of the day. In essence, there's success. Hey, Gina, stop the yawning over there. That there's successes on the way to success, and they need to be recognized. You see, if you don't recognize them, you don't realize you're actually being successful. Like, for example, one of the most successful people I know, in the Natural Life Business Partnership is Meryl. She's doing so many successful things. She's doing so many positive things to get her message out there, to create her brand, to do things. And yet she's probably not celebrating all the aspects of success and emoting, being present to our success. And I'm not going to stick on this, but the aspect is that we lose opportunities to generate the positives of success, to in essence feel them, to get the good stress from them. Yeah, what, Camille?
I want to say that I find in this community we have our what's working, what's not, what isn't, and why call on Mondays, and we always start with a small win, because as entrepreneurs we don't see our own growth.
Right.
And I've actually kept notes for 3 years on everyone's growth, so I can tell everyone where they are if you've been on that call, and I can show them their growth. But sometimes we celebrate, like, we call it a small win. But sometimes people are like, yeah, I got like 4 more clients this week. And I was like, that's huge. They don't see their, and Meryl, you were one of them as we went through our 90-day challenge.
Yeah.
End of our 90-day challenge, Meryl was one of the ones that spoke, and it's actually an amazing video. You guys can go back and watch it. And she didn't realize the growth that she had in 90 days. In fact, she felt in her mind as a failure.
Yeah.
And she was actually voted, I don't know what we called it. It was like community success queen or something. I don't know. It was like superstar, community superstar or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and she was the runner-up with the most growth in 90 days. And she had actually stopped posting because she couldn't see her own growth. Yeah. So she created that stress and that limiting belief on her own. And I see it in entrepreneurs all the time, that they're looking at that long range, like, I'm not making it yet, I'm not paying my bills yet, I'm not, and they're bringing their own limitations down because they can't see that small success. And we talked about this in the business intensive. I said the most important thing to do is to like have a daily routine, like get up the same time every day, go to bed the same time every day, but make your bed. Because that's one thing that you'll accomplish every single day. Like, get up, make your bed. Like, and do the little things so you can feel like, even if it's like I cleaned out the dish, like I put all the dishes in the dishwasher today, or I got a load of laundry done. Celebrate the tiniest little successes that you have. So you see that you're accomplishing things as you go along. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Thank
you, everybody. Sorry? What?
Are you glad you jumped on? No.
Thank you, everybody.
Understanding the recognition of success, as Camille was pointing out, one of the things to streamline what Vinny was saying earlier also about, you know, the end goal, right, of financial success or happiness or all these things, or comfort, right? Of course, fulfillment is something we need to talk about. But the aspect of success is about unblocking limitation of choices, of choice. The aspect, from a financial aspect, you have, the greater your finances, the greater your ability, you're less limited in what you can do. It really is, success is about unblocking limitations of choice. And it's one kind of way, from physical to financial to self-psychological direction. Unblocking our own limitations of self is success, right? And I take that, and I heard this a long time ago. It's a Japanese saying: happiness is achievement. Say that again. Happiness is achievement. Mm-hmm. And it's really weird, but in essence, it's true. When we achieve something, whether it is being in front of our children, making one of our to-do lists, and achieving, happiness is achievement. Often, if you look up success definitions, they're going to talk about being happy, you know, being content, maximizing every moment of life, which I really don't agree with. It's awfully freaking stressful. But the happiness in there. Happiness is achievement, and think about it. Success becomes of achievement. The changes and transforms of your reality, how you change and transform your reality, goals, other things along those lines, those little things, those daily things that we need to choose to do to achieve, from which we are happy because we achieve them, and then our success builds from that. It's kind of an interesting thing of thinking along those lines. Now, I talk about this only because the aspect of not changing our perception regarding this, it adds to the aspect of stress, the aspect of we're thinking and perceiving that we're not at our goal, or we're not successful because we're not at our goal yet. We miss all of the small achievements that make us happy. We're not recognizing our happiness, and we're not recognizing the success in the moment, being present in the moment. So that adds to the stress. Now we'll go back the other way. Any thoughts from anyone on that?
I can just say that I think it's really important that we do our gratitude every day, and like what we're thankful. Like if I get into a bad place, I usually just go outside. I step outside in the nice weather, and I make my gratitude list. Like, what am I grateful for? I'm happy.
I call it TAG. Thankfulness, appreciation, gratitude. Three of the most powerful metaphysical, emotional generations, right behind love and kindness. And those are, of course, all states of being can be generated if we allow ourselves to do that.
Yeah. And smile. I think if you
yeah.
Smile, right? It changes your mood. You can't be mad and smiling.
No. And by the way, and actually, it changes your state of being with the autonomic nervous system. So success is being present to the art of the challenge and the experiences of the journey. Success is being present to the art of the challenge and the experiences of the journey. A successful life. The other thing too, from one of my definitions within my definition of success, is being the golden rule. Sometimes it's just good enough to live it, but to be the golden rule, to do unto others as we would have others do unto ourselves. That, by the way, that is not a Jesus Christ Christian thing. It's actually through 173 religions, minor religions, and cults throughout the world. The golden rule is called the golden rule because it's so omnipresent in human consciousness. Okay.
Oh, there's a question. Did you see it? Your tag. Your tag means thankfulness, what, and gratitude?
Tag. Oh, tag. Thankfulness, appreciation, gratitude. Very powerful metaphysically, very powerful physically in the aspect of stress. Okay. So I went over earlier the true reality that exists as far as stress. Now, stress, good stress and bad stress, the aspect of too much stress, I gave you the thoughts on load and what stress can do, and of course how anxiety can evoke from the brain breaking from too much stress, in the example of a single episode, PTSD, chronic stress load, or problems of brain. The brain can't handle it, can't handle the stress, and thus what expresses from it are the sympathetic, the fear, fight, and flight reactions of anything from increased heart rate to breathing to problems of breath to problems of oxygen to sweating to pains to fear. And yes, this is the aspect of what happens in stress is the connection of the amygdala, emotions, and hippocampus memories. That's a bad combination. When your brain can't control that, the memories and the emotions and an explosion therein. But more importantly, the aspect of all of your clients, of yourselves, that we are going to project into a future, a worry or a fear, and we're not going to be able to stop it. And the stress from that causes issues. Now, let's just look at that with the aspect of stress, anxiety, and success. Can we start to see how a brain, a being that can't handle the stress, and the stress is having a negative aspect on performance, the aspect of cognition, ability to be able to think clearly, or the ability to remember, or the ability to act from an intention into an action, producing a result, as far as our success and achievement, right? And of course, where the stress is breaking the brain and not allowing us to achieve as much, of course, our happiness is going to be in decline as well. So here we see the disconnect of a stress scenario where the brain can't handle it, and it holds us back or completely disconnects individuals. I have clients who have had far more. I've had tons and tons of them, and I look forward to helping tons more in the future, that their entire life is disconnected from success. They are unsuccessful because of inability to take intention to action. And of course, then the other aspects of fatigue and other things, chronic fatigue, all the other things that can come from this. Now, but I want to make two things here, just right now. The aspect of not, when you're moving forward in a normal world of struggle, and looking for success, be it business, be it personal, within ourselves or others, or however you're looking for defining your success, that you have two choices, and quite often they're not choices because perhaps even until we just discussed it now, they were unknowns, they were unrealized, that you weren't celebrating your successes, all the successes on a daily basis, and the positive stress, the positive effect that's going to have. If our perspective is focused on the end game, only end game, and we're only seeing those things we didn't do or are not working or what have you, and we're not there yet, that is a negative stress. Adds to the burden of the brain, makes the brain weaker, makes it harder for us to achieve the next day and then that day, and success becomes harder and harder. The goal of success, of what we believe we want, perhaps goes further and further from our grasp. So the aspect of recognizing, one, what stress is, of course, healing the brain, doing things to make it stronger, to stress lift the brain, make it stronger so that it can deal with even the stresses, negative stresses. And that's another topic, but even the negative stresses that are occurring in one's life, making one's brain stronger brain and body stronger to take the entire stress of trying to achieve success and other things in life, relationships, what have you. That is something that can be done, should be done as well. Not just what I'm going to talk about today as well, which is perspective. The constant of life, the gravity of life, your strength right now, if I made you twice as strong right now, bodily strong, gravity would have half the effect on you. But whatever you are right now, your strength to resist gravity, when we can't resist gravity anymore, it pulls us right into the ground and we die. All right, I don't mean that to be melodramatic, but we are constantly resisting gravity, and for that we are becoming, we are growing, we are healing. Okay, hopefully. So what you're dealing with, how you are, what you are, and the stress of gravity is a constant. That's what it is. Can you change that? Absolutely. It's what I do all the time. It's what we can do. It's what you guys do as well, even from a nutritional aspect, a training, exercise aspect, and things like that. You are in aspects of health doing this indirectly, perhaps, or directly knowing that you're doing it. But the cognitive one, the one from here, the thought from in here, this goes into the aspect of linguistics. This goes into the aspect of meaning. So if, with your clients or with yourself, if stress comes from us labeling meaning to everything, of course, the bills are coming in and we give it a meaning. And depending on how we give it a meaning could be much more stressful, added to the stress burden, the load, or less. How someone talks about us, how we interpret something. We give things meaning. Humans are meaning-making machines. And it's that meaning which creates the cognitive thought stress burden. One of the things that I do with my clients is that I shift their perspectives. What's the word I'm looking for? Not re-window. Word. I shifted. I can't think of the word. Hold on a second. It's completely out. I just flew out of my head. Shift their perspectives. Well, there's another word for it. Change their point of view on something so that I almost had it. So that their perspective on a situation, on what someone says, on even occurrences in their life has less or different meaning. So thus less impact. From a cognitive aspect, that's where our cognitive stress comes from. The aspect that generates worry, fear, and projects into the future. If I was able to go in and take meaning away from any event, the person would have no stress. They would have no impact. It would have no stimulus impact on them whatsoever. So the reshaping of meaning, reframing, that's the word. Whew, thank you. Right, we've heard this, reframe how the perspective is on something. This is perhaps one of the most potent. You see it in neurolinguistic programming, you see it in landmark education, you see it in different language technologies. I think it's one of the most powerful aspects of coaching, the ability to reframe someone's perspective. Once that's done, you can decrease or eliminate the stress, the cognitive stress burden on someone, having massive effects. One, of course, we can look and change and strengthen the brain, right? And that effect, the machine, the mechanics of it. But also we can change the load itself. The load itself is simply meaning. And reframing that for someone shifts the load, decreases the stress, can eliminate or take away the anxiety. And also, we just spoke about it, reframing success. Think about it. Reframing our ideation of success. One, make it solid. If it's not solid, your unconscious mind knows everything. And because it's not solid, it doesn't know where you are. Anxiety, two ways it comes. Anxiety is going to come from fear, worry coming up, or the recognition or the unconscious recognition of being powerless. Two aspects. I have massive success with people in those two aspects, and I don't even get into the brain training yet, just by shifting perspectives and those two aspects. Worry, fear, right? And powerlessness. And worry, fear can be dissipated, if not dissolved, by a powerful reframing. You see? Okay. So, and again, back to success. If you do not have solid goals, all right, and they're simply goals, long-term, short-term, whatever. And I'm not a big goal person, but it's important to have them. They're not by the way, goal should be a moving target. It shouldn't be a solid fixed thing. It should have variability because you don't know. It could be even bigger. It could land you a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. You didn't know all the possibilities that could occur. But success definition, have it, make it, because your unconscious needs it. The unconscious, which is what is actually getting you to your target, it's doing 99% of all the things, even on metaphysical, particularly on metaphysical levels. And if you're not solid, if you haven't given a definition, it's like, where am I going? What am I doing? Where am I going? And that is stress, and that is anxiety. And that disconnects you from intention. Any level of stress that disrupts the brain, potentially causing anxiety, takes the attention off. It's much harder to take intention to action. Intention to action is achievement. Achievement is happiness. Living a life in happiness on the journey towards success is going to increase your probability of getting there. And by the way, like I've said, I have independently wealthy people who've gotten there and then got the anxiety because they didn't plan. They don't. Now what do they do with their lives? Okay, so it doesn't sound like a big thing, but it is. So I just want to throw that out just for now. Any thoughts, feedbacks on that? All right. Definition of success, how it relates to stress, how it relates and actually creates subliminal, subclinical anxiety in all our lives, and the ill appreciation of all the little successes we are making. I don't go from the first floor to the second floor. I can't walk from the first step to the last step. I can't do it. Maybe you guys can. I've got to go up every step. Once in a while, you take 2 steps. But I got to make those steps. And I'm successful at every step all the way up until I make it to the next level. And I could celebrate every single one of those steps, right? And we should. So I just want to throw it out there, the aspect and the recognition of having a success definition for ourselves. And one that can be changed and can be made far greater and better. It can evolve along with us. But I just want you to know, it helps the unconscious mind. It decreases stress and increases happiness, and it allows us to be more successful on that end. Now, the other end, I just want to throw it in there. I gave you what stress is and how the broken brain and all that can cause stress and stress-related issues and stress-related illnesses from the gut to the heart, AFib, you name it. But also the disease of failure, in essence. And I'm not saying failure is a bad thing. Failure is great. The aspect, I relish it as opportunities to learn. However, I don't want to fail forever. But the aspect is that the aspect of getting to our, I don't know, I lost my whole train of thought. Anyhow, I'm throwing it out. Thoughts, ideas, differences, additions, please. Come on, everybody, jump in. This is a subject everyone should talk about. I don't care if you're prepared or not. Okay? You want to be successful? Open up your mouth and say, I don't know shit, but or I have my success. I get it. How's this idea? Come on. Jump in.
All right, I'll jump in.
Sure.
Is someone else talking? Oh.
Go ahead, you're good.
So, since I've been going through my transition with my career, and putting together my last 4-week series workshop, am I? Yeah, okay, I'm on here. The fourth part of my series talks about finding your purpose and your passion. So I talk and think a lot about what success is and all that kind of stuff. And I actually have a private client coming here on Friday, and I was going over all my coaching questions. And one of the questions is like what your definition of success is, or, where do you see yourself in 10 years, questions like that. And so I've been thinking about it, a lot of it lately, and I'm kind of like, even though I'm still building a business and I don't work full time and stuff like that, I'm very happy that I get to do all of the things that I like to do in my life. I get to meditate every day. I practice yoga all the time. I exercise. Those are the top 3 things that I would want to do in my life, always, and for the rest of my life. I love to cook and entertain, and I love to be surrounded by, friends and travel. And I've been doing all of those things, even though I haven't really been able to, pay my bills all the time or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that life is perfect, and I definitely have stresses, but I went through a list of, my top 10 things that I would want to be doing in my life, or my top 10 passions, and then, kind of crossed off the ones that were not going to support my highest good or fulfill me the most. And my top 5 things I'm doing on a daily basis. So I'm really happy about that. And I feel like that is, a big part of the definition of success for me, is that, and it's also completely learning to love and accept myself and trusting the divine. Those are definitely the things that I'm supposed to be learning in this lifetime, and sharing it with everybody else to assist people in finding all of that in their lives. So there's my big whole thing on what I think success is.
Excellent.
That's
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
I think what you said earlier was just basically you create your own reality, and you create your own stressors, and recognizing that they are stressors and that it's just mindset. You can just switch it because it affects everything else in your body.
We don't create all of our stress. Bills are real. Gravity is real. There's situations in life that are not of our own creation. Well, our bills could be. We created the bills. They're real. Okay. We may not be able to pay them all the time. Some people that becomes such an enormous stress that is a PTSD and a chronic stress upon which I don't care who you are. You can't be wealthy, well or healthy under great financial distress. It's almost impossible. So there are things we do create our own reality. That's a metaphysical aspect, and absolutely, and we can create our way out of it and manifest that. But the aspect is that we have an enormous amount of power in the dissolution of the stress that we generate inside by our perspectives, how we see reality. I'm a big believer. I don't think there's any doubt. Perception is reality, right? Our own perception is how we experience and see and know reality. Perception is made by perspective, and that's the aspect of reframing. You shift your perspective or shift someone's perspective, you shift their perception, you change their reality. And that's how we unload or change. We can take the 1,000-pound stress, a cognitive stress of worry and or fear, and we can reframe it, shift it to 10 pounds simply by reframing it, you see? Mm-hmm. Because it's unreal. It truly is unreal. We may owe everything, but are the solutions? Absolutely. There may be other aspects within relationship, whatever. But one of our most powerful linguistic tools, one of the most powerful aspects is to reshape the language we speak to ourselves, reshape the language we see and hear and experience the world. And that reshapes the stress. And that changes the anxiety state. And that changes the road and the ability to achieve our successes. By the way, I don't want us to not, in our success headlines, in our goal setting. You see, the definition of success is often inclusive of, but not entirely of, our goals of success. The aspect of economic financial goals, right? To achieve certain levels and or steps. Big ideas, big imagined things for us to achieve and to have it. So these are goals, and the financial part is just as real, and of course links into our unlocking our limitations, right? With infinite financial resources, you have infinite choices. You are not limited in anything as far as choice. You're limited in choice often by finance as well as personal perspective. We're limited by choice. So what do I want to go from there? Any thoughts on anything I said right now? I know where I want to go.
No,
I think we covered a lot on stress, anxiety, and success. Camille, you want to say something?
I just want to remind you that it's 9 o'clock. So we got
Okay, I just want to throw this last piece in here. Great, and I think we did pretty well.
Yep.
On the aspect of, I'm just going to throw this out as a teaser, because we got out into, and this is not for a functional life forum discussion. This comes from my metaphysical work. One of the things about when, and so many successful people who have reached high levels of, let's call it financial, personal, in their own goals and what they're looking to achieve, and it brought them wealth. Of course, others, Mother Teresa was incredibly successful, lived in poverty, but changed the world. So I want you to understand the spectrum, but we're in a business aspect, one aspect of what we're doing, business. So the one thing that almost always say is, if you focus on the money, to make money, I think it's one of the something that disempowers us, making money. When you look to make money, often you'll never achieve it. It'll happen in small amounts, never ever growing. And that goes into the aspect of the metaphysics. One, that everything is energy. That's a quantum physics aspect. That is unassailable. Either an energy or or field, depending on which line of thought you want to go with, but is energy, and so is money. Money is a human-created energy. It is of a finite amount, and it flows. I have termed it currency, C-U-R-R-E-N, capital T-C-Y, like current, like a current of energy. Currency flows, and that there are, I think it's important within a business paradigm to understand the flow from a metaphysical aspect. I worked on this and for decades of why my own people think of, why do I have limitations? And talking Napoleon Hill and others of the old masters, looking at blocks to the flow of money or economics into you. They'll often say that there's some issue with you, that you're blocking that flow. Well, that could be true, but understanding money is energy and it flows, and asking the question, why is it not flowing to me? Whether Merrill, it's the aspect that like in any circuit, a circuit has lines that would flow out so that energy or electricity could flow in. Currency is no different, right? And your lines go out to your clients, but also to those who will become your clients. And then there's one other aspect to this, which I won't talk about today, of how to get currency to see you and how to get it to flow. I'll give you one hint. Electrons will not flow, even with a direct line, will not flow where they can't go. Mm-hmm. For example, if a battery only holds as full, even though there is limitless amounts of energy, it will not flow into the battery. You see. So I just want to put that out there as a metaphysical aspect to all the physical things that we do to become successful, to change our world. And by the way, again, the golden rule, what we are all in here to do is to make someone's life better, to transform and change someone, to give benefit to someone else's life. And that's also in our success definition. So I implore all of you to work on your definition of personal success. Have it so your consciousness knows it and your unconscious knows it. And we'll stop there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very
Thanks,
good.
Guys. Thanks for coming.
Any ideas for the topic to flow into next month or when's it, 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah, happy next month.
Yeah, next month.
I actually don't have any. I thought about that earlier today. I wrote a bunch of possibilities when we first started this.
Well, we usually take something out of like where this conversation flowed. How about
this would be the teaser.
the what?
The teaser that he just gave.
The flow of money and the energy of money.
The metaphysics of money.
That would be really interesting. I was going to ask you, but it's going to go too far. But it's a good one for the next time. How do people change or attract that flow of energy that's money?
Yeah, that's in my all the metaphysics, as I've shared with many of you, is my greatest mission.
Yeah.
I didn't think I would do. I would do that one. It doesn't take too long, but also then comes the question of how to change and access that, which gets into I call meditations, but we can start to access, and actually it'd be really cool. Yeah, let's do that.
You can just start. I mean, we can have a 2-part one too. We just see where it goes. You can just talk about the metaphysics, the energy of money.
What?
We'll just start with the energy of money, like defining what is it.
I'll do it.
And then we can always go to the next one and do, how do you attract the energy of money?
It's not attraction. Not attraction, but well, I guess what kind of? It's different, yeah. But what I like about that, I don't have to prepare for it.
All right.
All right.
I'm good. I'm good to go.
So the topic is, for July 10th, right, the topic will be the energy of money.
Okay, so July 10th and not July 3rd.
Oh, wait, am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it's wrong. I think.
Every 2 weeks?
We might want to not do July 3rd. People may be.
Oh, we're not doing that.
I think that's what we did. I think we moved it. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can just tell you if you want to put them in your calendars, because we already did. In July, it's July 10th and July 24th.
Okay, great.
For the month of July.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, just one thought before you guys go. Talked about stress and everything else, but I didn't want to go too deep into this. Although for anyone who hasn't seen the last one, I think it was a pretty good job on the aspect of soil, gut, brain axis, microbiome, mental health, and microbiome. When we talk about stress, you cannot uncouple the microbiome from stress, and it is my belief, somewhat backed up by research, that especially in PTSDs, but of course chronic stress, that the microbiome is a stress sink. It is an access. It evolved to absolutely work with synergistically, symbiotically with the brain. And if the brain does what it does, but it sends down this excess, especially of course, in the fear-flight response, it sends it down. And think about it. Stress is a bundle. It goes down and gets broken up into the trillions of friends. And then they react. They suck up the stress, you see. And then they react. And of course, as I taught last time, their response comes to the top of the stress axis, the HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, and actually sets it down. The microbiome is one of the big things that actually allows it to set down. So you can see we have microbiome or gut ecology issues. People can set that down, right? So I want to recognize also that stress with success or anxiety, you must think of brain and gut always, and that the stress can break not just the brain, it can break the gut. That I am of the opinion that the gut diversity and the gut the microbiota changes because they are impacted, overly impacted. Quite often they're already weak, right? They're already weak because of our life and other things and cesareans and you name it, right? And then the stress, it takes them out as well. Brain and gut. Just I want to throw that in there for you guys to think about and to incorporate into how you see your clients and patients. All right.
Excellent. Thank you so much for hosting us tonight and being our presenter for this. These are really awesome.
Yeah, it's
and
great.
If you guys have missed any of them, they are all online in our member resource library. So you can see all of the ones, our launch videos on our website, but they're all there and they're all on a playlist on YouTube. So you can go through your member resource library and read them and go to YouTube.
Thank you all.
In our weekly wrap up, if you're in our mailing list.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoy doing these. I really do. And thank you for the opportunity